The Chalke History Festival special series on history with Jackson. Hello and welcome to History Jackson, the home of accessible and digestible history. And welcome to our Chalke History Festival special series, where we'll be talking to some of the historians, living historians and performers here at Chalke about what they're doing at the festival and their work. Now, Chalke History Festival will be covered comprehensively through History Jackson, be it on our social media, our blog, and our podcast. So if you wanted to check out more and learn more about what's happening at Chalke, do head to the links in the description below. Now, without further ado, I'll leave you to our Chalke History Festival special series episode. So hello and welcome to the Chalke History Festival special series here on History Jackson, and we're joined by Kate Mosse. How you doing?
Hello, very well. Lovely to be back.
No, and it was great to have you on the podcast. I'm really excited to talk to you about what you're doing here today at Chalke, because I think it's really important. So your talk is on unheard heroines in World War II.
Yes. I have a book called Warrior Queens and Quiet Revolutionaries, which is a kind of putting women back into history. And I came here last year and did the event. It was a sold-out tent, and it was absolutely wonderful. But what I noticed, particularly in this fantastic festival, is that there is a great deal of interest in the Second World War, and a lot of the stories we know about women in the Second World War have been forgotten or just transmuted into one or two women. And there were so many women who were doing everything, but of course often behind the scenes. I mean, that was the point, particularly that. And also, I think the other thing that has come out is that, I've written about it in fiction, I've written about it in non-fiction, but there is the idea that particularly Jewish women were not involved in the resistance at all, that there's a very odd narrative that goes on around that. And so what I wanted to do, because I saw the reaction here, is I thought, well, I will write a new show that will simply say, let's celebrate women who resisted. And it goes from some of the more obvious people in the Special Operations Executive, of course, to a couple of the women that we've seen on the television in the last few weeks, the heroines of D-Day that nobody really knew about and are just coming out now. So it's to celebrate the women who have made us all free to live like this.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant thing that you're doing, putting women back into the narrative, because so often World War II history is dominated by these big battles.
Yeah, of course.
And you also worked with the Holocaust Memorial charity on this. How did that come about?
Yes, well, I live in a place called Chichester, which you know very well as
I love it.
Alumnus of Chichester University, and I was approached by Chichester marks Holocaust Memorial Day. There's a very, 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 very small Jewish community in Chichester, but they asked if I would do a show which celebrated Jewish women of the Second World War. And it was really marked. The show I'm doing today is inspired by that. It's not exactly the same show based on that. But it was very interesting doing in a place like Chichester, which is alive with history. It's living history, as you know.
All over the place, yeah.
Romans and Georgians and all the rest of it. And of course, we had RAF Tangmere nearby. And it surprises me how little people know about some of the history. So my wonderful mother-in-law, who is nearly 94, who lived through the war, locally, she was in Appledram, which is a village outside of Chichester, because her father was in reserved occupation because he was a market gardener and worked on one of the big estates. And Rosie, who lived through it, came out of the show in tears and saying, I didn't realise that 90% of the Jewish people in Poland died. And I said, well, no, that's the thing, that people don't realise the actual reality of some of those things. And so it just reminded me that we think that everybody knows the history. But of course, the truth is that people know bits of history and don't always know all the other bits that go together. So that is kind of my thing. It's not about taking wonderful men out. It's absolutely not about rewriting history or revisionist history. But it is about saying, let's see the whole picture. Because unless you have the whole picture, it's not really history, is it?
No. And I really like that approach. You're not rewriting it, and you're just shedding light on things that haven't had that.
Exactly.
So that's brilliant. Now, we have to have this one as a short and snappy. I've been here all week
You've
now.
been
You
here
can
all
tell.
week.
A short and snappy podcast episode. But you've been here at Chalke History Festival before. We've got an amazing year this year. What are you most looking forward to going, seeing, learning, witnessing this year at Chalke?
Well, what I really love is I love the living history, as I just used that phrase. But everywhere you look, there are people in period costume. There are period instrument. I write a lot about the medieval period, and I love going to see the kind of the trebuchet and all of those kind of things. But I think that the people who are part of reenactment, I love that. Growing up in Sussex at the local museum, the Weald Endowment, I used to go every year to see the Storm of Arrows, recreating Agincourt and just the sound of it, these kind of things. So I love the kind of texture of it, because that's what I do as a novelist, obviously, put that on the page. But also what Chalke does so well, which I don't think anywhere else does, that you have this sense of history being a living thing, not just, in terms of the reenactment and things, but that we are history too. And so when you walk around, you see, oh yes, this is someone from the 1400s. This is someone showing us a steam engine from 150 years ago. The idea that we are all part of a continuing story, and that people will look back and this will be history one day. And I love that, because I in these very troubled times, frankly, it gives me hope. The idea that the human story in the end keeps on going. And I still believe somehow that the good will triumph over the bad. And there's something about Chalke that makes you believe that, actually, because everybody's here respecting the past, wanting to learn about the past. And if we learn the lessons from the past, then maybe we won't repeat them.
Yeah, totally. I love the positive tone of that.
Yeah.
Particularly in this time when it's not a particularly positive news cycle. So thank you very much for bringing
my
that.
pleasure.
Yeah. Now, if people want to go away and grab copies of your work, interact with you online, how can they do that?
Well, I'll be signing books after my event here, which finishes at 4:00, and that I'll be signing Warrior Queens and some of my fiction. People who are particularly interested in the Second World War, my novel Citadel is set during the Second World War partly. My latest novel, The Ghost Ship, has just come out in paperback, so perfect for summer reading, and it's a pirate story set on the high seas, but based on the real history of two female pirates called Anne Bonny and Mary Read, everything that I do, all of my fiction and non-fiction, is set against the backdrop of real history. So for me, that's the starting point, place and history. So all my books are available anywhere you get your books, supermarkets, online, independent booksellers, very important. And I am on social media, both on Twitter and on Instagram, because one of the things I love about being an author is being out and about and meeting readers, which is why I'm standing in a field on a Sunday afternoon, because the book comes alive when you meet readers. That's how it works. So anywhere, and if people want to talk to me, come on Twitter, come on Instagram. And ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to vote.
I love that last message. Thank you for dropping that one. And I think it is a great thing about Chalke and social media that we get to interact with the people who read our work. So thank you very much for sharing that. There'll be in the description below for everyone to go and go away and look at. You can tell this is my 25th podcast this week.
And now finally the sun's come out, we're squinting into the sun. So you're doing brilliantly.
Oh, well, thank you very much, Kate.
It's a pleasure.